Hello and welcome to QInsight, brought to you by QGate, the podcast where honest conversations meet business transformation. I'm Steve Clarke.
And I'm Alastair Jupp. In today's episode, we're joined by Chris Parks, Microsoft business and AI expert. Last time we talked about the AI revolution and how we're all going to be AI bosses. Today, we're discussing what it means to be a frontier firm, digital labour and AI readiness.
Chris, excellent to have you back. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I think we stimulated some good conversation and debate after the last episode. People obviously wanted a little bit more, so maybe it wasn't too far-fetched.
Excellent. People are listening. This is the main thing. If we can keep it like we're in a good spot. So brilliant. So look, Chris, as Alastair said, we touched on things like AI agents in the previous episode. We wanted to expand on something that you briefly touched upon, which is frontier firms. Forgive me, but to position that before we go down that route, I have a question for you. When did AI become real for you?
Oh, right. Yeah. So ChatGPT was the first thing. It's a good question. ChatGPT in November 2022, I think I said, but it was reading something that Bill Gates said. Now, obviously, my background's Microsoft, said last time, 16 years spent inside of Microsoft. I was one of the first cloud salespeople in the UK. I was the first partner technology specialist for Dynamics CRM 1.2, the international release. And then you kind of get to this, I've left Microsoft now, I get to this AI revolution bit, but I still follow what Bill Gates says. There's a website called Gates Notes, and he often publishes things on there. And he talked about how he'd been lucky enough to be involved with the PC, the internet revolution, and how he was just as excited about this moment with artificial intelligence because he saw it as being as equally fundamental as the creation of the personal computer, so the microprocessor, the internet, the mobile phone, all of those things. When he talks about technology, people should listen. And he said the first, and this is kind of what made me realize. He talked about an applied biology exam, and I thought there's no way I could pass an applied biology exam, and nor could he, and nor could many people. But they trained a large language model to be able to pass an applied biology exam, and it got a score of 58 out of 60. And it wasn't just answering multiple choice questions and getting those answers right. It was about the kind of the long responses it was able to give to comprehension type questions, and how accurate it was there, and how well it scored based on being marked, kind of whether or not it was known to be a person or not a person. And at that point you think, wow, if you can train a large language model to pass an applied biology exam based on facts, then you can train large language models to do a lot of things, providing you've got the right facts behind them. And for me, at that point, I thought, okay, this is massive. Bill Gates has spoken. I've always followed and listened to what he said, and it just became reality from that point on. I thought, I've got to start using it. I've got to know more about this.
Absolutely. Perfect stuff. So, Chris, speaking of Bill Gates, speaking of Microsoft, and their term frontier firm, what is a frontier firm?
Yeah, so every year Microsoft release a report. It's called the Work Trends Index report. It's fantastic. And what they said 2025 was it would be the year that the frontier firm is born. And they said that a frontier firm looks markedly different than organizations that exist today. It'll be structured around on-demand intelligence, and it will be powered by hybrid teams of humans and agents. So as AI agents gain increasing levels of kind of capability over time, then businesses will need to adopt and adapt to that, and kind of fit those agents into their workforce. So a frontier firm is basically a company that's powered by intelligence on tap, and that's human agent teams, which we kind of talked about last time, and a new role for everyone, which is the role of the agent boss. They said it will rewire businesses. Leaders will need new blueprints, because you will have the rise of the agent boss, and you will have digital labor in the workforce.
The term frontier firm sounds brave and new, but does it also conjure images of the Wild West and the ferocity of it? And one thing that we've been speaking about at QGate is the risks of readiness and actually being able to adopt this new terminology, new methodology from Microsoft. And whilst we are firmly entrenched in the Microsoft space, selling their products and not least of all having worked for them, but they do have a tendency to maybe flip flop. You know, there might be this new term and it could be superseded pretty soon. Where are the potential risks with this for organizations looking to actually look at becoming a frontier firm? Where do they need to be careful?
So you've started with the frontier firm in the Wild West, which is one
Yeah.
type of frontier. If you think about Star Trek, I think space was the final frontier.
There are still spaceships being blown up in Star Trek, is all I'll say.
There are many types of frontier, right? And I don't think this is about the Wild West. I don't think it's kind of, oh heck, if we, you can't let AI loose on everything. And you're talking about what are the risks, what are the kind of the points where, and we touched on some of this last time. The risks are around organizations not adopting AI and therefore being left behind, leaving these productivity gains on the table for me, or the risk of over adopting AI and thinking that it can do everything that it can't do. This has got to be staged. This has got to be balanced. This has got to be managed when it comes to organizations and the journey to the frontier firm. So it's like you've focused on frontier firm. Wild West, I think of frontier being the edge and people and organizations kind of starting on a journey to that edge and to that boundary. So it's more about evolution than revolution for me.
It's just like leading the way, isn't it? It's quite interesting because processes and structures are not there, and so you're actually building the structures and processes as you go. I mean, that's certainly something we're finding. So for me, it's really important to be able to change and adapt and pivot, and than it is to you're not going into a guideline kind of thing that's already there. You're actually shaping those guidelines and those things.
Excellent. Okay, so we are near the beginning of this journey of frontier firms and everything it entails. Microsoft have really set out that there are 3 stages of these types of integrations. So the first one is starting with humans with an assistant, so us coming to work and using these AI agents. Where does it go beyond that? Where are these further 2 stages taking us?
Yeah, all tied to Microsoft's roadmap on this AI roadmap, and they talk about 3 stages of AI integration. And the first step, as you've said, it's human with assistant, right? That's level 1. And that's where everybody who has been able to use ChatGPT, Copilot, that's your AI assistant, right? And that's about removing the drudgery of work, helping people get the same work done better or faster. That's where we're all agent bosses. I recently, as a kind of a consulting gig, got asked if I could run a workshop on helping salespeople understand the uses of AI. I thought, yeah, I can run a workshop. I've done that many times before. And normally I'd sit down with a blank piece of paper and I'd start writing my agenda out. But now I used my AI assistant and I said, give me an agenda for a workshop that can help salespeople who are not savvy at all with AI. I didn't use savvy. I used more concise prompts, but it probably would have understood that. Give me a rough structure and outline for a workshop and some of the things that I could cover to get them to think. And it got me 80% of the way there. Great. And then I just tweaked it and delivered what I wanted. So that's the first level, that human with assistant. The next level becomes human agent teams. And that's where digital colleagues, agents join the workforce as digital colleagues, right? And they will take on specific tasks at human direction. So if you haven't listened to the episode 2 episodes ago, you should, because we talked about the lead qualification agent and the knowledge management agent. There's things in there, there's other things in Dynamics 365, such as the case management agent and the customer intent agent in Dynamics 365 customer service. No, there is no single customer service rep that loves filling in data on a form, right? And goes, oh, great, I've got to create a new case request here. And that's where these digital colleagues, so let's say there's a transcript from a web chat or there's a transcript from a call, and that's where an AI agent can automatically create a case inside of Dynamics. So nobody has to type it in, and everything is captured there, right? So you've got these digital colleagues, and you tell the agents to join the workforce, and they're kind of there. So people can start to delegate work to agents at that level. The researcher agent, you want to write a go-to-market plan. I basically I wanted to do some market research, so I used the researcher agent to say, can you get me as much information after companies that sell this product to this segment have a turnover of X, and it went off and it did all the research, all the analysis from the internet, and it came back and got that for me. That's a digital colleague for me. That's a researcher agent that did the research for me. So handling those tasks from an agent perspective is key. And then at the top level, the third level, which is human-led agent operated, this is where agents would work autonomously based on guidance from humans. And I think Microsoft normally, when they position something, they have these three levels, right? They're like, right, this is the level that we're already at or should be. This is the level that we want you to get to next, i.e. the sale. And then here's the level somewhere way beyond that, is visionary for the future, and it kind of sets the scene. The more I think about the human-led agent operated, the more I can actually see those things becoming reality sooner rather than later. And I think about things like supply chain and logistics. So you've got so many transportation or logistics managers that are dealing with routes and people and all of the things on a daily basis that could potentially go wrong. But you've still got to create the plan. You've still got to schedule all of these things, resource scheduling, the optimization of that. That's something that an AI agent could do. It could come up with a really probably comprehensive plan for running that kind of operation if it knew all of the factors, all of the variables, and all of the input. And then really the role of the human at that point, where it would be human-led agent operated, would be to deal with escalations. This shipment got delayed. You need to source something from somewhere else. An agent's not really going to do that straight away because agent to agent. And so that's where the human-led agent operator, where there's an issue, then escalate to a human. So these three levels. One, use AI as your digital assistant. Two, set direction and let agents deliver on a task or a work stream. And then three, trust the agent to do the bulk of the work and escalate to human where there is a need or an issue that needs resolving that is outside of the boundaries of the parameters that the artificial intelligence knows and understands.
Quite a mouthful.
I understand the frontier firm concept. I mean, I'm interested in your perspective. My thought pattern is that a startup frontier firm, almost their org chart has got these agents on it from the start, right? When they start their business. Can an established business become a frontier firm?
Journey to the frontier firm. It's one of those things where if you're a brand new startup, you could probably think, right, I can use digital labor for this, I can use digital labor for that. If you've already got people in your workforce, it's about going back to the capacity gap that we covered in the last episode and identifying efficiencies or inefficiencies where you can potentially use digital labor to help transform teams, divisions, departments, and help them get more done faster. So I think everybody will have a different starting point, but everybody will have things that they wish that they could do. Real world kind of issues and challenges that are the bane. Maybe it's the sales inbox that gets 250 emails a day, of which 150 of them are spam and people trying to sell them something rather than genuine inquiries for sales. And then another 60 are quality issues or similar, and there's only really 2 or 3 leads in there. Use an agent to filter out that and say, just monitor my inbox, monitor this shared inbox, and say, do this, do that, do the other, and based on criteria. So I think there's a starting point and a journey for everybody. And if you can come up with one tangible example and you can start to build trust around it, you're in a good place.
If our clients could start in one particular department, which one would you say
Great question.
might be the best place to start?
I don't know your clients, and I don't know the verticals, and I don't know their industries,
All
but
right,
you will know.
SMBs in general. Then let's go for an SMB, of a typical structure.
So, I mean, I always like that example there of the sales inbox, right? Because I think you will find a lot of people who get that kind of use for customer service or contact center service, internal sharing of knowledge. People ask questions of people. And there's a website out there. Let me Google that for you.com, I think it is, or whatever. And it's like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah, it goes and
I
does
know
a
it. Yeah.
search. Yeah, it goes, and you can use it to facetiously say, look, you've just asked me a question. I've done a search on the internet, and the internet has told me the answer. I.e., you could have searched for that yourself. It's inherent that people will turn to people. So, what can we do with the knowledge and all of the information, all the insights we've got in our head, all the documentation? And, your clients will have data inside of CRM. You know, if you're going to prepare for a meeting and you're a sales rep and there's an outstanding service case, how often do you go, I know what I'll do before I go and meet with this client? I'll go and log into CRM. I'll switch to customer service and I'll see if they've got any outstanding cases. Then you just don't do that by nature. But if you've automatically got a kind of co-pilot sat in there and that says, hey, we can see, and it sounds a little bit like Clippy, hey, it looks like you're writing that, you have to be careful. Hey, we can see you've got a meeting coming up with this client. Here's a summary of the account. Here's some insights into, what the last communications have been with support. And just to give you that overview, to save you that time, that's a really great starting point for almost any SMB and anybody who is too busy with home, family life, and everything else they've got going on outside of work to have the time to be able to do a role as comprehensively as they would probably love to, if they had an infinite amount of time. So it's those little things I think we'll start to take for granted over the next 2 to 3 years, where we get fed that information and those insights that help us prepare much quicker. So for SMBs, I think that's a great starting point.
I'd agree. I mean, sales, marketing, service. I think the guiding light is the need for accuracy. If you go into the world of manufacturing or finance, right? My finance director, I said, and the AI popped up saying, I can't remember what's the term that they use now, that it makes mistakes, right? You probably put the fear of God in some of an operations director who's running a precise production line or a finance running a balance sheet, right? But in sales, the accuracy need is less, and I think in that sense, it's probably a safer place to start.
That's definitely a slight on my profession. But,
I was watching Steve. I don't mean that in any other way.
I know. No, you're absolutely right, because you can see examples where you've put in calculations, so formula, algebra, whatever it might look like, and you have a model that comes back and says this is the answer, and you question it. No, it's not. Actually, you're right. That isn't the right answer. Here is the right answer. So, I see exactly what you mean. There's a forgiveness almost in maybe the human element of it. So less kind of transactional and more human. Maybe it's just I'll throw that out. Trying to save my own skin here. Clearly,
I don't think we're saying, Steve. I don't think we're saying that salespeople are inherently lazy. But if you had the opportunity to get a one-page summary for every meeting that you had to brief you, would you take it?
Oh, do you know what? I absolutely, Chris, and one step beyond
Me
that,
too.
I've been using the Copilot researcher agent, and I saw it pop up on my Copilot for sales license on the window, and I was like, wow, I've got a meeting this afternoon, and where I'd normally go away, a discovery meeting, I'd go away and do the prep. I put the company name in, said, give me a full report. And now this is the interesting thing. It took about 15 minutes, where it wasn't that kind of ferocious pace or speed that you're being, this information that's being spat out at you. It went away. And that actually gave me confidence. Funnily enough, you said about getting the right answer or the wrong answer. It said deep research for this information. And it came back 15 minutes later with, I think, a 60-page report, and phenomenal. And then guess what I did with that 60 pages? Hey, summarize this for me. So, to the point where it's almost farcical, but no, to your point, Chris, absolutely. So look, I want to move on to perhaps the next stage of an organization, a frontier firm organization, because Ali asked the question of, where did these businesses start, an SMB or otherwise? Everyone has to take that first step into being a frontier firm and using these AI agents. So we've spoken maybe about possibly replacing me with an AI agent or a sales function or whatever that might look like. But I was reading the other day that we're now kind of getting to the point where we will have organizer or departments within an organization that are entirely made up of AI agents. So we're not talking about HR, marketing, sales. We've got almost work charts as opposed to organization charts. It's about having this pool of resource that you can then utilize. And that's the next step. I from what I see, is that where we're going? It's not so much just having an assistant, it's whole swathes of resource that you can call upon.
I think it will redesign organizations once they start to adopt agents, right? Because once you can buy intelligence on tap and you have an agent that can do a specific function, the organization chart as we know it, this person works with this person, works with this person, and reports to this person. And there's another team the same, and those two top level managers report to this person. It's very hierarchical. And often inside of organizations, that only exists from a kind of a management reporting perspective. It doesn't enable the work to get done. It's just a division, department, hierarchical structure. And I think people will go from kind of doing work to running work streams when you've got agents involved as well. And if you think about that organization chart, you would need a work chart if you had digital labor in there as well. We talked last time about the lead qualification agent. That's significantly kind of powerful when it comes to qualifying leads, and that is the job that somebody would be able to do. So when you've got HR and org charts and roles and responsibilities and all of those things, you as a business should be able to think about function and work stream rather than just organization chart. And therefore you will have digital colleagues on there and a number of agents and people on the work chart, as it were. I think you might also start to see different functions within businesses as well. Everybody's used to human resources as a function, and everybody's used to IT services as a function. But the blend, once you've got people and AI agents working together, lends itself to something like intelligence resources, where you've got to actually manage people and technology in the same, not in the same manner, in a different manner, but in the same kind of part of the business. So I think there'll be transitions there as well, and how organizations define themselves with the ability to add these AI agents will transform how they also kind of measure and monitor themselves internally.
Excellent. Ali, a question for you. So we've spoken about AI agent assistants. We've then spoken about whole departments of AI agents. Where do you sit as the MD of a business, of an SMB? And this, you could be sat here as the MD of an enterprise organization. Where do you personally sit with the level of adoption of something like this? Are you all in? I mean, are you taking for kind of red what Microsoft is saying right now? Would you commit tomorrow to employing these AI agents en masse to help us as a business? Where do you sit?
I think the reality is we already have things within our business doing things, right? They're doing activities. There's just nothing specific. It's quite interesting, as you were saying earlier about replacing you. It's not about replacement. It's about enhancing. The younger audience won't remember this, but the $1 Million Man, we're going to make you faster. We're going to make you cleverer. We're going to make you stronger. Right? It's that. That's where I'm right now very comfortable in the use of the technology. Is it enhancing people to do better at what they do, right? And to focus their attention on where they can really add value to the business. And from my perspective, how I can enable that comes back to what we were talking about in the previous episode, which is the policy in place. So I'm comfortable with how they're using it, but I don't want to control how, what they're doing with it, right? I just want to be comfortable that nothing's being risked. And if I've got that comfort, I want to enable them to do whatever they want to do with it, because that's where the value is for me.
Chris, do we need to err on the side of caution, or do we trust Microsoft and the hype cycle? And we're probably beyond that now, actually. But are we ready? Should we be going all in on this?
Hype cycle. That's one that not heard for a while. The Gartner coined hype cycle, where you get to the peak of inflated expectations, I think, and then you drop into the valley of disillusionment, and eventually you come out to the plateau of productivity. That's about right, I think, where you hit. I think we're about to hit the plateau of productivity for generative AI, but there's so many different types of AI that every single one will be in a different place on that hype cycle. I forgot what the question is actually after you asked about the hype cycle, but just to kind of go back, and one of the things you asked Alastair about there was, would he trust AI? Would he use it? You've already said you've used the researcher agent. So you've already got digital labor inside of your organization. You're an agent boss. You're already using it. You're already there. So sorry, what was the question, Steve?
No, should we be trusting Microsoft's vision of a frontier farm future? Is there anything, should we err on the side of caution, or is now the time to go in full bore, take no prisoners, and deploy all over the place?
There you go. So I was one of the first cloud salespeople inside of Microsoft in the UK, and going back 10 years, maybe a little bit more than that, actually. Time flies when you're having fun. And I remember, I remember going to an internal conference, and there was a guy, Steve Ballmer was there. Steve Ballmer was a very direct leader inside the organization. He'd been at Microsoft since the start, and he was talking to one of the other execs at an internal conference with a room full of techies, where Microsoft were basically lead with cloud, lead with cloud, lead with cloud. There is no other way of having the conversation. And every technical person in the room knew that their customers weren't ready for it. And so the other exec challenged Steve Ballmer on, but what if the customer says no? Steve Ballmer said, lead with cloud. He said, I understand that, but what if the customer says, you're not listening to me. You are not listening to me. Lead with cloud. And lo and behold, let's say 15 years later, the world is now cloud enabled, cloud adopted. So this is something that's coming, right? Do we trust Microsoft all in? It's not just Microsoft, right? There's other vendors that have AI and AI agents and AI strategies. NVIDIA have AI inside of their chips. It's not just a software thing. So the world will evolve, and AI will become commonplace, mainstream. And it's about how, and that's the journey to the frontier firm, right? It's about how each and every organization chooses to adopt and make their path to AI in the same way that they made their path to the cloud. They went in early and thought, yep, I can get some productivity. Sorry, I can get some cost savings from this. I can get I can remove that for that, and it's not apparent, it's not obvious. You end up on this journey. So there'll be early adopters, there'll be laggards, to talk about another kind of curve that exists. But is the vision right? Will this happen? Absolutely. I totally believe that's true.
It's quite interesting. You said 15 years later we're there. I think with AI it's going to be significantly shorter time period that before people are going to be. Ultimately, if you don't do it, you're just not going to be around in probably 5 years, because the learning path is exponential, because the system is learning itself, right? And that's the big difference between cloud and cloud was developed by the people using the cloud, right? AI, yes, it gets developed by the people, but it's also getting developed by itself, which is just exponentially accelerating its development and its progress. And the pace is just astounding, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think what it can do now, if I look at some of the prompts and responses that I'm getting compared to the responses I was getting 2 years ago, they are significantly different. They are vastly superior. And it's, AI itself is trained based on the data and all of the feedback from, millions, billions, trillions of people around the world that are using it to become better. I think we do need to be careful about how we use it. I was having a conversation last week with an IT, a techie person who manages infrastructure within an organization, and he was so anti-AI. I couldn't believe it. And what he is basically, he was saying it's crazy that people are using AI. It's crazy that people are trusting AI. And he gave me an example around somebody his wife knew who'd used it around asking it a question for a medical diagnosis. And, his wife works in medicine, and she knew it was wrong, and it was wrong. And what AI gave it was wrong. And I was like, okay. And I was thinking, when Google and search has been around for such a long time as well. And if you did a search for your symptoms on the internet, you would become a hypochondriac pretty quickly, because it will tell you, yes, there is something wrong with you. And it's the same with AI, right? And I think we have to be careful about what we use it for. Where's the issue there? Is the issue with AI in responding from information that it's been given, or is the issue with the person who actually trusts it for a medical diagnosis? So let's use AI for the right things as we start on this journey, and not the wrong things, because anybody can scapegoat it for making mistakes and getting things wrong. It's possible based on the information that it has. So there is that always check for accuracy, make sure. But don't use it for life critical things, and don't use it yet for mission critical things.
Yeah.
And not yet, but don't use it for mission critical things. But let's start the journey and let's think what we can actually use it for. And that's the first step for every organization.
It comes back to that human led, right? You have to use your own judgment on this stuff. And human led, even put something in ChatGPT, you're human leading it. So when it comes back to you, put the same judgment on it as you would anyone coming to you with something.
Yeah, tell it to give you the wrong answer to a question, and watch it give you the wrong answer to a question. It's just how it works.
My wife could ask me for that. That's fine. That's how I normally do below. Brilliant. All right. Well, look, Chris, thank you once again for joining us. Incredibly insightful. Fantastic to have you on. So look, I just want to kind of, in closing, perhaps summarize, because a lot of our listeners are likely in that SMB space and may very well be listening to this podcast to get an idea of how to become one of these frontier firms. So just in closing, first step is, quite succinctly, start using AI agents, do it carefully, do it on a small scale. And once you've got used to that, scale up. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's a really good starting point, but do it under the guidance of enterprise data protected. Don't put everything into the public model. Don't feed ChatGPT. Have a conversation with you gents at QGate if they need help with what that means and keeping the data within their organization safe and secure. That's a really good starting point.
Excellent.
Alastair, anything to add?
For me, just to close it off, I just want to say thank you for everyone joining us on QInsight. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you are you're listening to this podcast.
Excellent. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Chris. So finally, to learn more about QGate and how we help businesses grow through CRM, AI and innovation, and to talk about AI agents, as Chris suggested, visit qgate.co.uk. We look forward to seeing you next time.